According to Taste Holdings, they own the rights to Starbucks stores, both of them in South Africa right now, but the coffee market, they say, is bigger than anticipated. They plan to open up to 15 more stores over the next 2 years and will spend more than 100 million rand doing it. So how is a small player to survive after the entrance of Starbucks? And of course, Mugg & Bean is entrenched in South Africa. Vida is absolutely enormous. Famous Brands is roasting all of its own beans. So how do the little guys survive? I'm Bruce Whitfield. I'm joined by, well, he's not so little, but his business isn't so big, Julian Jordaan, who is founder of Republic Coffee Company, to talk Java. And we'll talk about the small brand in a place where the big boys and the coffee league is growing, Africa's coffee brand. Julian Jordaan, nice to see you. Republic Coffee Company, you're one of 1,000 roasters, 1,200 roasters, 1,500 roasters. I suppose it depends which week we're looking at.
That's right. I think there's a roastery opening up every single week. Most coffee shops in town are looking to roast their own coffees, so roasting is definitely picking up.
Because the process of roasting isn't that hard. You have a roaster. You could almost roast beans in a frying pan if you were so inclined.
Sure.
Look, you get better roasters than others.
Absolutely.
But it's quite a low barrier to entry business.
The barrier to entry is quite low. The funny thing about coffee is that there isn't a school in South Africa where you can go and study to be a coffee roaster. If you want to be a winemaker, you can go and study that. But you have to do some self-study, or you're going to have to go and shadow and pick some ideas from the roasters around town. So that's the cool thing about roasting, is that everyone's got their own style of roasting. But I do think that there are a lot of roasters popping up here and there, and the key is to be unique, to find something unique.
And we'll talk about being unique in a market which is, everybody is trying to be unique. So you've got 1,200 unique coffee roasters in the country, and,
Sure.
and how that helps. But as a kid growing up, this is long before you did, Joko not only made tea, but they also put ground coffee in boxes. And then Kloof made coffee, and my grandfather on the Argus stove had a pot of coffee brewing all day, and they just added more water and they just added more grounds to it. That was coffee that I grew up with, and then we had instant coffee.
Sure.
And today, more Rick coffee is sold in the coffee market than you guys could ever hope to sell.
That's right.
I mean, is there really a market for so many of you?
Well, I think the idea of people's palates being changing is quite critical when it comes to the slice of the pie. You say the market it might be saturated, but the guys that are dominating the market are the large importers of coffee. I don't want to let's just call them average coffee. Whereas the artisan roasters come in and they say, let's do things differently. Let's look at the bean. Let's look at the origin of that coffee, and let's bring out the best flavor of that specific bean. And if you blend it all together and have an awesome cup of coffee rather than just an average cup.
But isn't South Africa a market of average? I mean, no disrespect to Starbucks, but Starbucks, as a global purveyor of coffee, I would say has to be average. Yeah, they may have some better blends than others, but generally you go to Starbucks, you're going to have a fairly inoffensive cup of coffee. You're not going to have a challenging cup of coffee. It's like having a glass of nice red wine rather than a glass of brilliant red wine. I mean, that's the difference, isn't it?
Sure. I think the key is education. People don't value what they don't understand. So you might walk into Pick n Pay and buy a bottom of the shelf bottle of wine where...
Don't judge me. Just because you've seen me, haven't you?
Third bottle.
You've seen me.
Third row.
Thank you.
Whereas John would come in and he would buy the top shelf. There's a massive price difference in those two, but he understands the care that has been taken with that top shelf bottle of wine. It's the same thing.
In a market where there are more than 1,000 of you, probably, yes. And it's a rough guess,
yeah.
And everybody wants to be unique.
Yes.
How do you stand out in such a cluttered market with such a small, receptive audience?
Sure. For me, it's two things. Number one, we work on relationship. And it's nothing new, but behind every business and behind every coffee shop or school or church, there is a face, there's a person. So
that's hard work, though, isn't
it?
Because
yes.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, if you're Vida, for
yes.
argument's sake, you've got a network of 50 or 60 stores in garages, maybe even 100 by now, I think. If you're Mugg & Bean, if you're Wimpy, the relationship is with the big brand.
Sure.
The coffee may be average. You know what you're getting. You can open up your laptop and you can tap away on your laptop for an hour or two.
That's right.
and have the coffee. You're in a much tougher market because you've got no retail outlet of your own.
Yes.
It's all about distribution.
That's right. It's about distribution.
It's tough.
It is tough. And I think for the smaller guys, you have to find a uniqueness about you. And you say there might be 1,200 of them, but I'm pretty sure each one of them is gunning for that small slice of the pie. There is a pie, and that pie is the artisanal market, not necessarily the commodity coffees that are the mass market. Like, for instance, the Vita. That's what we call commodity coffee. So you need to first of all educate people, like I said just now, on what is good coffee and what is average coffee. And once they understand what good coffee is, they're more likely to purchase yours than.
Take me through what you've got there, because the origins of coffee, the legend of coffee is the shepherd, the goat. The shepherd was watching the goat. The goat ate some beans off a bush. The goat got sprightly and springy. It's a good story.
Yes.
The first beans are thought to have originated and been roasted in Ethiopia. It's still a substantial African producer of coffee, and it's where some of the best coffee on the continent comes from.
Indeed.
Kenya does well.
Yes.
But more and more tends to be Latin America.
That's right. I think for me, my take on that is that the South and the Central American coffees are of a higher quality most of the time because of their processing methods and their farming.
Explain higher quality. Define what quality is when it comes to
care has been taken in terms of the farming methods. They're more technologically advanced in their processing of the coffee, so they might not mill it by hand. They might have a machine that for instance, depulps the cherries. Where in African countries, specifically Ethiopia, the guys are sometimes still pressing out the cherries, the beans out of the cherries, which is quite archaic, but that's how they process it. So their production is far lower than, let's say, for instance, your production of your Nicaragua.
And how does that low production affect? I mean, yes, it's a low yield, but how does it affect the quality? Or is it just the story?
I think that there is some romance in African coffee, and like you mentioned, the whole fable of Kaldi and the goat. That there's romance, there's theatre in that, but being an African coffee, it's a very unique flavor that you get from it. When you drink an African coffee, you can expect fruitiness. You can expect some citrus flavors. This one specifically, the Ethiopian limu, is from a wild region.
Is limu a variety of bean?
It's an area within Ethiopia. So why we've chosen this one, we've fallen in love with the story of limu. So the coffee farmers there, it's not their number one crop. So coffee is a cash crop in most places, but for them, they're coffee drinkers too. So they farm the coffee for consumption, and some of it also goes to export. But when the farmer can't get enough of the quota from the farm, he goes into the surrounding forestry areas, which is where wild coffee grows, and he starts to pick it off the wild coffee trees and adds that to his bags. So there's actually a bit of wonder in this cup too.
Good story. Take it away. Next story. Yes. Next story. Let's move through them. I can't see the rest. So take limu away.
Wonderful.
So there we go. Nicaragua. We've chatted a little bit about Nicaragua, but that is the center of the global volume trade, is it not?
Sure. I mean, Brazil is the highest producer of Arabica coffee. We're talking about Arabica now, not Robusta.
Arabica, again, it's most commonly used in the coffee shop trade. It's the higher grade, higher quality.
High quality, correct. Versus Robusta, which is exactly what it says. It's a robust crop. It can withstand pesticides. It can pests rather. It can withstand harsher conditions. So great care has to be taken when growing Arabica bean. That's why it's slightly more prized.
Right.
But like you said, they are a giant in the coffee industry. The Central and the South Americas, because of their processing methods, they can bring out crops quickly with fantastic quality.
A winemaker will talk about the terroir.
Yes.
Because
It's
not just the earth, it's the environment, it's the slope, it's the sunshine, it's the amount of rain, it's the amount of cloud, it's the amount of breeze that wafts over the vineyards. This comes from a particular Sojournia estate.
That's right.
Does estate matter? Is earth and coffee?
Well, just like you get fine wines in the Franschhoek Valley, for instance, you would get an estate coffee, so it's traceable back to the estate, and you can go and shake the hands of the person.
But if I gave you the coffee of the guy whose hand you shook, and I give you coffee from 2 farms away, would you be able to tell the difference? Same bean, same varietal. Could somebody tell the difference?
I'm pretty sure if you've got an amazing palate, you could. I probably won't be able to tell the difference, but I think it all comes down to, like you said, the terroir of the area, but also the processing methods.
Have you travelled to these properties?
I have not.
You haven't, okay.
No.
But the point is, there's a level of excitement that goes with the origin of coffee. Next
Absolutely,
one,
yes.
next one, because we get on to
Wonderful.
what most of us can tolerate. Often a single origin coffee is particularly strong characteristics,
Yes.
and yes, you can evolve into that, but for most of us, we want it warm and soft and mellow and delicious.
An enjoyable drink that is
give us a bit of a buzz.
There we go.
So what have you got here?
Okay.
We can either go horse racing or we can go to the romantic
horse racing
lake
or
house.
romantic getaway. So let's talk about the horse racing first. It's got nothing to do with that.
It's called trifecta.
Trifecta, that's what it is. And this one here, the blue one, is called Lake House. We're very friendly, and we have friends that are dear to us, and all our blends are named after either an event or a joke. So the Lake House was 2.5 years ago. We were in Knysna doing the Knysna half marathon, and we stayed on in this little creek, and I brought them what I call then the Frankenstein blend. So when I don't know of the name yet, but I'm still trying some blends out, I call it Frankenstein. So I took Frankenstein with, and we drank this. They absolutely loved it, and we said, well, let's call it Lake House. So that's Lake House.
Lovely.
It's got three origins: Brazil, Guatemala, and then Ethiopian Limu, and we blend that in different percentages to get a really smooth cup of coffee.
I mean, there's some guys in Port Elizabeth, Mastertons. I don't know if you've ever
Yes.
been into the Mastertons store, but there they've got the buckets of beans from all over the world, and they will let you blend your own coffee. You say, I like it robust, I like it,
Yes.
I like it mild, but I want it fruity. I'd like the sense of granadilla. And they'll take 3 beans from here and 6 beans from there and 12 from over there, put them into a blend, and you can adjust the blend, and they'll create the blend. The fact is
Yes.
that, like any wine, blending different beans brings in different characteristics.
It really does. That's the beauty of blending. I think there's a big push to single origins, and like you said, there's definitely a place for single origins, but there's a beauty and an art in blending when it comes to finding the perfect, what beans would work together. Do you want body with a bit of acidity? Would you like some plum and some nougat, for instance? And then you find out what the origins taste like, and you blend them in different percentages. So it's just like winemaking, for instance.
Is Starbucks in South Africa going to make or break
Yes.
the independent trade?
No, I don't believe it will.
Either make or break it. It won't break it.
It won't break it.
Will it help make it?
I think it will help make it, because Starbucks is also bringing a line of specialty coffees in, which I do appreciate. So they're not just doing the commodity grade coffee with no name on it, just a bag of coffee. They're also bringing in what I've seen. I haven't been to the stores yet, but what I've seen, there are some single origin coffees. So we're going to be capitalizing on their marketing campaigns, basically. So they're going to be pushing single origins, and people are going to be educated on single origins, and they're going to come back to us because we have a great relationship and we have a better product.
He's feisty, is our
Yeah.
Julian. Julian Jordaan is the founder of Republic Coffee Company. There'll be other caffeine-inspired shows, artistically inspired shows as well. Thank you so much for watching The Moneymakers. We're not going to have a cup of this right now because we won't get to sleep. There are enough horrific things to keep us awake around right now. Thank you so much for watching. More next time. Bye-bye.